Welcome to Andy and Ariana. Monday. Everybody's thrilled to be back at work. Ari, we're 1 week away from having a full bracket. Full bracket for the NCAA tournament. We got
That's Sunday.
We got teams in the bracket. I know, but next Monday on the show we will be talking about a full bracket and how you're going to bet these games. And are you up to speed? Have you done your homework?
I'm not up to speed, but I know people who are up to speed. I just tail them and watch the games. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. I didn't realize that Selection Sunday was already a week out. And I'm going to be in sunny Las Vegas that following Thursday for some fun. And Friday morning for our show at 4 a.m. or whatever time it starts there. So it's going to be a good time. Yeah, I mean, like this off season, believe it or not, for me is going by pretty quickly too. And I don't know if it's just like the phase of life that I'm in, but like that season was the fastest season I've ever been a part of. And I feel like we're going to snap our fingers and we're going to be in August and we're going to be ready to ramp up again. So, you know, this is like one of the pillars that helps us get through it. And I'm excited to watch it and enjoy the tournament.
Well, the other part of this is this week I always enjoy because it's one of those weeks where you come home, there's conference tournament basketball on TV. I know for you, there's always action in a week like this.
Yeah.
In honor of our friends at Huel and fueling your morning with Huel, this is the Huel Black Edition, by the way. 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, complete nutrition in this bottle. We fuel your morning with the things you need to know. And of course, one thing you need to know is you use the code Staples15 at Huel.com. That's Huel.com. Code Staples15 for 15% off your first purchase of $75 or more and a free gift. We will fuel your morning with some teams that deserve a little celebration. Lipscomb, the champions of the Atlantic Sun. High Point, the champions of the Big South. Drake, the champions of the Missouri Valley. Omaha, the champions of the Summit League. Well, the other school was not eligible to participate in the NCAA tournament, so they're in anyway. And then the ultimate directional school, Ari, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. So not even the flagship of Southern Illinois, but Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. This is not the Salukis who came up on Name That Logo. I believe these guys are the Cougars.
That's a different college.
It is a different school. It is a directional school.
Oh, I thought like those schools were still like satellite branches of those schools. That's hilarious.
Well, it is. It is, but they have their own athletic program.
I did not know that.
I didn't either, but
I'm into the Final Four.
I think you should. I just sprinkle a little bit on them. That's the best way to do it.
It is my favorite thing in the world when a team that has an athletic budget of like $14,000 beats Kentucky. Like I still can't get over that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's what we were looking at. It's fun. My son asked me about Jack Golke just this weekend. So Jack Golke was the hero of Oakland's win against Kentucky. He made it rain on the Wildcats to the tune of 10 3-pointers in the first round last year. He got traded this weekend from one G League team to another. So I mean, I think about it. Ari, I was thinking about this. So one day this week, we need to have a segment where we go for about 15 minutes and we just name NCAA tournament heroes of the past. It's like,
yeah,
Jack Golke, Ali Farouk-Manesh, Bryce Drew. Like, just
I would be very bad at that because my ability to retain names in college basketball is very bad. Like I remember the moments. I don't remember the people.
Well, there's the buzzer that Ali Farouk-Manesh beat. But those teams are going to be dancing in the NCAA tournament. We'll find out more as the week goes on. But thank you to Huel. And thank you for giving us complete nutrition in a bottle. Staples 15% off your first purchase of $75 more at Huel.com. All right. We have a very big show today. We are talking burning questions for spring practice. Spring practice has either begun or is about to begin. Like when we talked to Rich Rodriguez last week, I think he already had 2 spring practices in the books. They're now like a third of the way through at West Virginia. Florida started last week. You've got Penn State going on spring break this week. They come back and then they start. We talked to Jed Fish. Now they don't start until a little bit later because they don't finish their spring until May. Conveniently after the transfer portal window closes.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe that's a better solution, I think, than just not doing a spring game. You know, I feel like they didn't really have to think that outside the box on that one. Yeah.
It's also cold in Seattle, so having a later spring practice makes sense.
Yeah, but I just think anybody could just do that, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so does it, like, here's the thing, and I don't know this, and I've been covering college football for 15 years. Does everybody's spring practice coincide with their spring breaks?
Well, no, not necessarily, because a lot of them, they'll have spring break in the middle of spring practice, and they'll sort of plan it that way.
Okay, Andy, I got to go on a little mini spring break rant real quick about me.
Okay.
And am I the a-hole?
Oh, boy.
My daughter has swimming lessons at 10:40 a.m. every Sunday for a half hour with an instructor to teach her how to float and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is triggering me about spring break. So my wife and I are late, and we rush her over to the pool. And when we get there, the place is basically empty. Like there's no kids in the pool. Usually it's like packed. There's a million kids there.
Mm-hmm.
Lessons are not going on yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We got no notification of that via email or text or call. And then when we got there, they said it's spring break. And I was just like,
For who?
For who? Like, what do you mean? That's not a uniform.
Parents of 3-year-olds don't get a spring break.
I was going to say, like, what is spring break a uniform thing for every district? Is it on the calendar? Is this like the official week of spring break?
Ari is not the
fine, but tell me,
Ari is not the a-hole here.
Okay,
you are not the a-hole.
Say, like what?
Yeah,
that was the worst. Like, and I went like, and that's what I did. Exactly what you said. She goes, "Well, we don't have classes today. It's spring break." And I said, "For who?" Then I got a little, like on.
Also,
the call.
Dallas is a massive city. I doubt everybody's on the same spring break. Even in the tiny town I live in,
there's no
everybody's on the same spring break.
Everybody's spring break is different, beholden to their school district or their
Right.
college.
Right.
I was just like, what the hell are you talking about?
So where I live, most places try to mirror University of Florida spring break. Since so many people are employed by the University of Florida, they try to mirror the University of Florida spring break. And some of them do, but like the local Catholic schools match the diocese in St. Augustine, which sometimes has a different spring break.
Yeah.
And so those kids are on a different spring break than everybody else's kids. And it's very strange. And so don't feel bad.
And then
do not feel bad.
Okay. So I'm not in this scenario, but I was kind of,
they are for not emailing you.
And like, you remember having a 3-year-old, getting her in her swimsuit and doing all the stuff and getting her over. I mean, it's like not easy. And I would have rather just laid around, especially because we went out on Saturday night and I had a little hangover. So, okay. Lastly, at the end of the show, I need you to explain to me how this roll forward, roll back works. I don't get it.
The spring forward, fall back.
Yeah, I don't understand how we're manipulating.
We should bring on our friend Big Cat from Pardon My Take, because they do the running prank every year where they tell people like weeks in advance to spring forward or fall back, but they tell them the wrong one and they do it in the wrong weeks. And he messed it up this year because he forgot to do the prank. And then they mentioned it last week and it was the actual week of it. But you don't really need to know anything. Your phone does it for you now.
No, I understand like what we're doing. I get it. Cause like this morning when I woke up, I worked out at 5:30 this morning and it was pitch black. And usually when I come out of the workout, it's light and it wasn't anymore. Like I understand. And it was lighter. I get what we're doing. What I don't understand is how
why are we doing it?
No, how do we manipulate time? It's like, aren't we on a schedule of like, this is how many, like,
we're not manipulating it because we do spring forward and fall back. So it all ends up working out.
I know, but it's just like, okay, I just don't understand how, like, it's like the world is on an axis. We're turning, like the time is the time. Like, I don't understand how we could just.
No, the time is a construct. There are always so many hours in a day and so many days in a week and all that, but how we view that and mark it and codify it is
so
is
one week. So 1 week in the
humans.
beginning of the year has 23, one 23-hour day, and then one day later in the year has one 25-hour day.
Pretty much, yeah.
And we do this for farming.
Unless you live in Arizona, then you don't do it at all.
Why
You
it's so
just
difficult
don't
for me
participate.
because I grew up in Arizona and like we didn't do this. So like now so we went out on Saturday night and my wife had her mom watch our daughter. So we went out on Saturday night. We had a nice time. We got to come home to an empty house and we got to sleep in the following morning. And she goes, but by the way, we're rolling forward tomorrow. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Is that like a drug? Like, what do you mean we're
spring forward?
Spring forward. And I was like, that means that we get one extra left. It's like of all the days I finally get to sleep in, we have one less hour to do so. I was very frustrated by that. And I just like, why? Like, and it's for farming. Is that what, do I understand this correctly?
Originally, yes. For harvest time, you had more light at the end of the day. So, yeah.
What I don't understand about that is why the farmers couldn't just work when it was light out. What does it matter what time it is?
Crazy, right?
It doesn't make any sense to me. If
but the rest of the world still moved on the clock. Their kids had to go to school, all that stuff. So that's why.
Arizona doesn't play around with this nonsense. We just chilled. Like, you know what I mean? Like the time is the time. And like, that's what I grew up with. So, you know, this is nonsense. I don't like it. Also, dude, shout out to Big Cat. Cause I don't know if you've been paying attention to this guy, but he's hit 16
undefeated. I saw.
in a row. Yeah. And that's like, I know it's like kind of like a funny thing that people are laughing about. You know how hard that is?
Oh, very hard. So he's giving out basketball picks and very sharp of late. Now his overall record's not all that great, but very sharp lately.
No, I mean I've never hit 16 bets in a row. I've lost 9 in a row once.
Now his partner PFT commenter Wizards fan is mad at me for the Cooper Flag column I wrote last week.
Yeah, I saw that.
We talked about it on the show. Like if Cooper Flag wanted to not be a Washington Wizard or not be a Charlotte Hornet,
I didn't have you on the show to talk about that because that's a heated
well, basically they excommunicated or PFT excommunicated me for the Wizard, and I texted him about it. And he's like, "Look, they're actually trying to rebuild this time," and I'm like, "How am I supposed to know the difference?" Feels like they've been trying to rebuild the entire time I've been alive.
I'll tell you what I told you on the show that day, and I still think that. I think that like basketball dumpster fire franchises don't seem to be as big of a deal as like a football dumpster fire.
Because one or two players can get you out of it.
Right. Like you draft Cooper Flag and you make one free agent signing and then you're good now. Like, I mean, like that's just how it is in basketball. And then another thing, and then we'll get into the spring stories, Andy, but have you been following this Myles Garrett stuff? That was pretty wild, huh? Did you see how he requested a trade like a month ago and then just signed the largest deal in the history of a non-quarterback in the league with the Browns?
Yeah, the largest since Max Crosby's 2 days earlier. And also, I did enjoy DK Metcalf. I want to go to a contending team in warm weather. Congratulations, you're going to the Steelers.
I mean, he got one.
They were the ones willing to pay him what he wanted. So there you go.
He got one of the two. I guess that's pretty good.
They're not contending. They're a first-round exit every year.
Hey, Sailor Joe, who goes 0-16 in a day. Going 0-16 is just as hard as going 16-0, just so you know.
I can attest. Remember that week I had where all of the picks on the graphic lost?
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
One year during the NCAA tournament, I lost 9 bets in a row, and I'm like, I've never won 9 in a row. Like, I wish that my stats and the odds of that went in my favor, but
right, bad luck is still luck.
Yeah, got some pretty bad luck lately, in cards specifically. You can ask my guys Kevin Puckett about that. Okay, go ahead. Let's do this. Let's get into spring.
We got to talk spring practice. I am fascinated by some of these questions heading into spring football. Pete Nakos did a really good column on on3.com that you used our way too early top 25 and just asked, the burning question for each team that we had in our top 25. And I liked a lot of those, but I also thought of a couple of my own. And one that just sticks out to me is of these true freshmen, because there's always a freshman that winds up the starter. Last year was DJ Lagway at Florida, Marcel Reed at Texas A&M, which nobody would have predicted at the beginning of the season. There's always a freshman who winds up starting. And
at Oklahoma.
Yes. But
his name's escaping me at the moment for some reason.
So here's the thing. You've got to figure this out. Like, which of these guys have a chance to maybe be the opening day starter? Like, are we going to get a surprise, like freshman opening day starter? So who in spring practice can put themselves in a position to be in that mix? Michael Hawkins Jr., by the way, is who you're
yeah,
trying to
thank you.
at
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
I mean, I've had a lot of I've been scarred by Oklahoma fans. Like my brain, that's just like a natural.
Yeah, they're mad at you. They're mad at you, but that's okay. You're a big John Mateer guy. So, all right, let's go through this list. Bryce Underwood's obviously the headliner because Bryce Underwood got the biggest bag at Michigan. Larry Ellison from Oracle pitched in because Larry Ellison's wife is a massive Michigan fan. And he was the number one recruit in the country. He was committed to LSU forever. And then close to time to sign, he flips. And now he's at Michigan. Now, Michigan has brought in Mikey Keene from Fresno State, who, while he was at UCF, played in Chip Lindsey's offense and started in Chip Lindsey's offense. And Chip Lindsey's their new OC. So it sounds like they brought in a veteran who knows the offense, who, if Bryce Underwood isn't ready, then you can go to him. But the Bryce Underwood situation to me, Ari, feels like a Dylan Raiola type situation at Nebraska, where like this is the guy. This is who everybody's been waiting for. Let's get him in there.
Yeah, like the thing that's interesting and the difference between those two is that Nebraska didn't bring in a transfer too when he.
Well, they were thinking about it.
Yeah, and then it got
because remember Kyle McCord was going to visit, and then it was like, no, never mind. We're just Dylan Raiola's coming, and that's it.
I wonder what happened there. But yeah, the thing that's interesting to me as you go through all of these names is that there, in most of the cases, there are people that could theoretically be the starter that aren't the true freshmen, right? Like, I mean, if you go look at Alabama, you look at Ohio State, Tavian St. Clair's there, and you have Julian Sand that people are expecting to start. Mikey Keene at Michigan, like it's not just a slam dunk of like it's either the kid or no one else, right? So like I think that maybe that is a good thing for the teams because they can make the freshman earn it if it comes to that, or if the freshman is better than a person who's been on the roster for a few years, that's also a very good sign in terms of their ready ability to go in and play. Like my answer to this question, Andy, is probably very similar to a different topic that we have on this show, because like I feel like to me, like of all the ones that are in there right now, the straightest line between true freshmen and program needing a playmaker at quarterback is at Alabama. And that would be like my guess. Like I feel like
Keelon Russell. Let's throw some names out there so the people can kind of get a sense of who we're talking about. So we got Bryce Underwood at Michigan, obviously. Keelon Russell at Alabama. Now he's a freshman from Texas. The other guys in the competition in Alabama are Ty Simpson, who's been there for a while, who was the backup last year. Austin Mack, who originally signed with Washington, came to Alabama when Kalen DeBoer came to Alabama. So those guys. You've got Deuce Knight at Auburn. Deuce Knight was committed to Notre Dame for a long time, flips to Auburn. Now remember, Auburn also went out and got Jackson Arnold in the transfer portal, and also went out and beefed up the room. So this is a true competition at Auburn. Deuce Knight is not the favorite. Obviously, Jackson Arnold is. But what if Deuce Knight just comes in and balls out?
So that's the thing. It's like, too, like a lot of times with college football, Andy, I feel like we do a lot of discussing things and trying to figure stuff out when the coaches are telling you through actions what they're going to do, right? Like I think that through action, it's probably a fair assumption that Jackson Arnold is going to start there, right? Because you don't put up the money and the effort to go get somebody like that if you're not going to rely on them to play. Now, if Deuce Knight turns out to be, Cam Newton, not by style, but just in stature.
Well, not by number either, because Cam Newton's like, no, you can't have my number. Yeah, you can't wear number 2.
Yeah, Cam Newton's he's an interesting dude. I love his hats.
We need to have him on the show.
He probably would come on. But like that's so like to me, it's like Auburn's action though didn't put them in a position where they would be relying on a freshman to come in. And I think Deuce Knight.
They also have Ashton Daniels, who was a Stanford starter last year. So they have. It seems like Hugh Freeze really did intend to have a real competition for this thing. Obviously, if you're handicapping it, Jackson Arnold's going to be the guy you think is going to start. But if I'm Hugh Freeze, given my situation,
yeah, it's almost like an overcorrection in a good way. It's like you didn't have any quarterbacks last year, so you're going to bring in 3 dudes and let them compete it out so that you can't fail in that regard. And like, you know what? Like, that's the thing too. It's like when you're projecting which players are going to start as freshmen, to me, the only thing that you can really do is try to look at the path of least resistance. Like if you look at, if Deuce Knight is awesome and he turns out to be a cannot be on the field type of guy, that would be great. But as we're sitting here in March, like when we're projecting who we think is going to be the one that plays, he has the furthest to go in terms of what to overcome in order to get there. So I can't predict that. For me, Keelon Russell strikes me as the type of person in position. I don't think he lost a high school game. He's an incredible athlete, big arm, everything that you'd want in a 5-star player. Like, he strikes me as the face of the new Alabama. Like, and I think that there's been a lot of discussion, and I don't want to maybe I'm being terrible at podcasting right now, Andy, because I know we were going to talk about Bama later, but like, I think that like, this is an important thing of like, people are like dancing on Alabama's grave right now. And I don't think people are talking enough about what may be rising from the ground in what, 4 or 5 months. Like he could be a household name as soon as August, like it doesn't always take forever. Maybe he won't play at all. I don't know. Ty Simpson has had some experience, but like he never really blew me away when he was on the field. So like for me, like the path of it's like, and let's go to Ohio State now, right? Like, is Ohio State going to go to a freshman? The Tavian St. Clair has been committed for a few years. He's a big kid. He enrolled and was on the national sideline at the national championship game. Like, he is a part of the program. And I think that's somebody that Ohio State thinks very highly of. But is he going to start over the other 5-star that's been in the program a year longer? Like, I don't know. Probably not, right? Like, just based on succession and how important it is to, get your feel. I don't know. Maybe it's
about Julian Sayin, who it's weird because we were just talking about Alabama, but Julian Sayin was signed at Alabama and got there, and Nick Saban leaves, and Julian Sayin decides to open things back up and winds up at Ohio State. So yeah, it's very interesting how all of this shakes out. The Alabama thing I find fascinating because Ty Simpson and Austin Mack were on the roster last year, and you've seen in the chat every time I bring up Jalen Milroe, and I've said, you guys keep telling me Jalen Milroe was the problem, but if he was such a problem, why didn't they just fix the problem? They had other quarterbacks on the roster. Why didn't they go to them? If he was the problem and the other quarterbacks on the roster weren't good enough to beat him out, that's still a problem.
How do you spend the entire offseason banking on the guys that weren't good enough to replace the problem? Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I don't know if Kalen DeBoer thinks this in his head. I don't know if that's the actual problem, but I don't know I think that we find out very early at the quarterback position who's can play and who can't. Like, I think that the stars of this deal, it's like Lenore Sellers and DJ Lagway didn't need a ton of runway before we knew that they were going to be stars, right? Like, it was just very clear from the beginning. And I think that, there's a long conversation about quarterbacks, the way that they're developed, how much money in a lot of cases goes into training these guys with personal throwing coaches and form coaches, like the Elite 11s, all these things that these kids are doing from the 3 or 4 years prior to even arriving at high school has put them in a unique position from a readiness standpoint to go and play. So like, I just think that like I don't know. It's interesting. We could do a ranking of like, what are the hardest positions to play as true freshmen? And I would say probably defensive tackle and the tackles on the offensive line, just from a physical standpoint. Right. But like, I wonder if we're at the point now, and this might be the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your entire life, but it's a podcast and I don't care. Punch me. Is quarterback one of the easier positions to start at as a freshman? Considering where
I don't think it's easier. Like, I don't think the job's gotten any easier. I do think that they have ways of adapting the offense so that a true freshman can play faster. But I think because of the politics of the quarterback position, because of the numbers game in the quarterback position, you sometimes find yourself in a situation where you have very little choice but to play the freshman.
And also, too, in situations like at Alabama or even Ohio State, if you have really good players around that quarterback, you don't have to run a complex offense to be successful. Like, I mean, Ryan Williams is going to make plays next year no matter who's throwing him the ball, and you can simplify it and you still are going to score. So, like, to me, River pointed this out in the text, and it's true. It's like, it depends on who is around you as well. But in terms of, I think I phrased that poorly, Andy. I don't mean that playing the quarterback position is easier than playing the other positions. What I'm saying is it's easier to fathom or easier to
Yes.
protect a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, because we've seen it. And part of the reason is the way the number situation works out, the way the transfer portal works. Your backup is very likely going to be a freshman. There are going to be times. So Colorado's a good example this year. They go get Caden Salter from Liberty, who I think you get him to be your starter this year. You bring in Julian Lewis, who's your high profile signee. The idea is to start Caden Salter. But what if Caden Salter turns his ankle week 1? Like, Julian Lewis is probably your starting quarterback at that point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe somebody who could be on this list because it's not much different than some of the other positions, or the other people that we have on this list. But yeah, like the thing too is this, like, I'm most excited about the notion too of a lot of these guys playing, because as we turn the page, I feel like this is a very critical year for big time programs changing quarter. I mean, even Georgia's changing it to a certain extent, right? We know who it is, and we saw him play.
Well, we think it's Gunnar Stockton,
but it's not a 5-star freshman, right? So
right.
So that's all, they're not on this list, but there is a new face of the sport turnover here. When you think about the big programs, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, all these guys are changing who's under center or who's catching snaps. Like, that's a big deal for like what we talk about every week too. So yeah, I'm super excited to see how it goes. I don't know if we're going to get answers in the spring to these questions, but if any of these kids played, none of it would be a surprise. But I think that it's pretty clear to me that Keelon Russell probably has the shortest, A to B to be the starter than any of the other options on the list.
Yeah, that is and it's weird because we've already seen some of Alabama spring practice already this year. And like in week 1, all the beat writers that got to see stuff, they said, if you're going by who's going in order in the drills, it's Ty Simpson, then it's Austin Mack, then it's Keelon Russell. And obviously, that's week 1 of spring practice. That can change.
That means
as
less
it goes on. But I would love to know what the thought process was going in, because they flipped Keelon Russell from SMU, and he was one that just about everybody wanted. Rhett Lashley did a good job getting him committed, but once the onslaught came, it was going to be hard to keep him, and Alabama ended up taking him. But that's one of the ones. And look, we've seen this before at Alabama. I'll give you an example of a year this happened at Alabama, 2015. So 2015, they are going into the. Excuse me, 2016, not 2015. 2016, they're coming off a national title. Jake Coker was the starting quarterback on that national title team. They've got guys that have been in the program. They had Blake Barnett. They had, I believe, Cooper Bateman from Utah. And then Jalen Hurts comes in as a true freshman. And they started Blake Barnett against USC in that season opener. But it was very clear that they were going to Jalen Hurts early, and if Jalen Hurts was halfway decent on the field in a game situation, he wasn't getting pulled. And so he comes in the second quarter of that game against USC, and that was it. He was not coming out. And so this feels a little bit like that situation where you have these guys that have been on the roster. They've, like, Cooper Bateman had been given a chance. Like, he was given a chance in 2015 to start the Ole Miss game because they weren't sure about Jake Coker. And then they fall behind Ole Miss. Jake Coker almost leads them back, and then Jake Coker's the guy the rest of the year. But you had these guys that had been in the program. The freshman quickly became the obvious choice. So perhaps that's the situation in Alabama this year.
Yep. And also, too, the kid's special. So, like, I mean, in those scenarios, I mean, I know Jalen Hurts, I don't remember like what Coker or Bateman were as recruits, but like Keelon Russell is supposed to be like one of the.
Coker was done. Coker won his national title, was out of eligibility.
Yeah.
But no, all of Alabama's quarterbacks at that time had been elite recruits. They just weren't that good. Yeah.
So we'll see. But also, too, for everybody who's like, I'm taking so much pride and excitement in the death of Alabama. Like, I think that there's no funeral yet. Just wait to see how this plays out, because they could be really, really good this year if their quarterback's dynamic and they have a chance to do that with Russell if he is ready.
So to the Michigan question, because Bryce Underwood is the true freshman that everybody is watching right now. Ferris Khan in the chat, who's a Michigan fan. Bryce Underwood can be QB1 because the Michigan offense is not built around the QB. They had 62 yards passing versus Ohio State and still beat them. That's true. Like, Michigan is capable of getting more out of Bryce Underwood than they got out of any of their quarterbacks last year because their quarterbacks last year were not very good.
Here's the thing, and that's true. They did beat Ohio State. That's not who they want to be. I don't think Michigan wants to be Iowa. I don't know. I think that there's probably the love child of Ohio State and Iowa to some. I mean, is that a
what a fling that must have been?
That was it was hot. But like, don't you think when you bring this guy in, you don't want that to be true, right? You don't want that to be.
No, what you want is to. But the thing is, I think what Ferris is saying is that as a true freshman, he's still going to give you more than you got out of that position last year.
I think you would give them more than they got out of that position last year.
Well, I got a hell of an arm.
So I know you got to rock it.
Not very.
No, I mean, I think that like if they don't get more out of the position this year, then like you have a coaching problem. Like, I mean, that's like that. You can give them 1 year because it didn't. I mean, but if that happens again, then all of a sudden, like Sharon Moore's in the crosshairs of like what the hell's going on here. I think that like JJ McCarthy, and like that was the thing with him, like was maybe the perfect Michigan quarterback because the team was awesome. Around him, but like also JJ McCarthy made pivotal plays through the air and on the ground in big crucial moments repeatedly that year. Like I think that like if you want to be that, that's okay. But Ohio State's the game plan for Ohio State that was done by that was just basically carried out by two elite interior defensive linemen and a boneheaded game plan on the other side is not the model for Michigan football moving forward. I think they're going to want to throw it. They're going to want to run it. They're going to want to be tough. The culture's still the culture, right? But you want Bryce Underwood to be the main piece, in my opinion, of that offense, especially considering the fact that I'm not aware of any dynamic receivers that they have on their team at the moment that are going to, be the face of that. So maybe it'll be a running back. It usually is, but you're not paying Bryce Underwood a bunch of money to throw for 62 yards in a football game. You're just not.
No, and look, if they're not comfortable with him yet, if they don't feel they have Mikey Keene, who's played a lot of college football games, so they can make that work. But they've got plenty of talent.
Yeah, and they got Justice Haynes as a running back. So that's I don't know that he is one of the better Alabama running backs of the last 10 years, but he's still a very good player. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like, but my anticipation is that whoever's playing quarterback, whether it be Keene or Underwood, there's going to be a massive improvement in their ability to throw the football this year.
Yeah, I am very interested to see what they do. Kaylin Childress listened to our Alabama discussion and said, "Yeah, no, it's Ty Simpson. His intermediate passing with those stud wide receivers will be awesome." Then why didn't he replace Jalen Milroe last year? If Jalen Milroe was so bad, as all you Alabama fans keep telling me.
And we don't think that Russell can throw intermediate throws?
Yeah, I think listen, good intermediate passing is highly underrated. Get the ball out on time, all that stuff. But that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who can do it all, which Keelon Russell may be able to do it all.
Yes.
Jalen Milroe couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
Bryce Young could do it all. That's what you're looking for. So one guy who we had this discussion about last spring, who wound up being exactly what everybody thought he was going to be, lived up to the hype, is this guy. That's DJ Lagway. I pulled my first DJ Lagway card out of a Panini Prism pack on the show on Friday. Got it's his rated prospect Prism break card. And there are autographed versions and autographs of DJ in some of these. There are there's Arch Manning cards in here. But PaniniAmerica.net is the place to go to start your collection. Ari's got a whole stack of Panini cards on his desk right now, constantly shifting, constantly reevaluating. But I'm pumped because got this first DJ Lagway. I was waiting for one of them to pop up because that's these Prism boxes. They're the ones where you think, okay, I might get somebody who's big in college football right now who's going to be even bigger. And we got another pack we're going to rip later this week. We also have a pack of the basketball version where there's Caitlin Clark autographs in there too. So PaniniAmerica.net, collect your favorite college, NFL, NBA stars. What we got, Ari?
I got a Deion Sanders. I don't know if I showed us on the show or not. This is what's on my desk. A Deion Sanders patch to 5 out of Spectra. Ooh. I've got a Riley Leonard silver rated prospect here that I pulled out of the product that they sent me. We got Luke Lachey, the tight end from Iowa, to 199. These are the ones that we're just going through right now, and a few Romo Dunze patches out of Spectra.
There you go.
See, I've got a lighting problem in here, so I'm trying to see that.
No, you just put the card. We don't need to see your face. We're just looking at the cards now.
Yeah, that's right.
Visit PaniniAmerica.net to start collecting your favorite college and NFL stars.
Andy, I forgot to show you. I'm going to show you while you're talking.
Show me
about this. But this is it right here. That's what you're looking for. DJ Lagway rated prospect Silverado right there.
That is what I want. Yes,
that's what you're looking for.
That is what I want. And we got another year of this. I also got this one the other day. Caleb Downs rated prospect. So, yeah, there's some fun cards in there. I can't wait. We're gonna rip that other Prism football pack, but I've got a couple of Prism basketball packs that we got to rip in honor of the big dance coming up.
I mean, the thing with those basketball packs is you might have a Caitlin Clark lurking in there, and even base Caitlin Clark cards are going for $25 to $30, and usually the base ones are worthless. You're looking for the big hits, but like Jaden Daniels and the big products, Caitlin Clark base cards are pushing $50 now. I mean, there could be a nuke in there. What would you do if there's just like $10,000 just sitting in that box right now and you don't even know it? Just sitting there.
I don't know. I'm excited.
I don't know how I honestly, like, Panini, I love you. And I know that you might have like a plan for our ad reads. And if you
they would like us to rip packs on the air, yes.
I'm opening them. Like Andy will rip them on the air. I can't control myself, but I'll show the hits and I'll tweet about it. I'll show the hits. I don't know if I'm a bad
Ari just negotiating with the advertiser on the air. Thank you so much.
I mean, I like it.
We love you, Panini. Thank you. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Ari, another spring practice question. Has Penn State fixed its wide receiver problem?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to find the answer to that question in the spring. But like also too, is it something that we would know in the spring? That
may be one of those that like it may leak out on the message board on Blue and White Illustrated. Our guy Sean Fitz may end up writing about that. I don't know. I really don't know if you get or they want you to get that much intel. But here's the deal. They got Devontae Ross from Troy and Kyron Hudson from USC. Devontae Ross was wide receiver 1 at Troy. He was the high volume guy last year. So he's been that guy. It wasn't like getting Julian Fleming from Ohio State, who had not really been, that high up on their pecking order among receivers.
Yeah, Ross had
Devontae Ross was the guy everybody wanted to throw to. And by the way, there is history for a guy going from Troy to a Big Ten school and being the best receiver. Now, he was the best receiver Pac-12 school first, but Tez Johnson going to Oregon from Troy worked out pretty well. So Devontae Ross, then you got Kyron Hudson. Kyron Hudson was not USC's wide receiver 1, obviously. He was more of a second banana. And I would not expect him to suddenly become a Biletnikoff winner at Penn State. But if Devontae is what you think he's going to be, then Kyron Hudson becomes a very dangerous number 2.
The good thing is you're talking about personnel changes. Like if you were asking this question and they just brought everybody back, it would just be like, oh. Like the fact that there was the chance for that to happen, I think, is a good thing. And anytime you have, even if it's from a lower level, somebody who caught 80 passes for over 1,000 yards, that's somebody who's used to catching the ball.
Who's been in that role, who understands what it is to be the primary target. I'm not sure, like Tyler Warren was the primary target for Penn State last year, and that's great. They've recruited well at tight end. So I'm not.
I feel like we also have to talk about Luke Reynolds, don't we? Like
we should. Go ahead.
You know, he's a big-bodied top 100 player at the tight end position, who I think is going to be a major fixture in their passing game as well. So, that's the thing. Like Penn State, we know beyond the shadow of a doubt, is going to have a good offensive line. Their quarterback is returning and was productive enough to get them to the CFP semifinals. Path, easy or not, should be better and more seasoned a year from now. And they've got the best running back combination in the entire country with Keelon Allen coming back.
And Nick Singleton.
And Nick Singleton, and by the way, when I was doing the All-American list, I was having a hard time picking which one to put first team. Like, that's where we're at with those guys, right? Like, both of them could be first team All-Americans a year from now. So,
we think Penn State's offensive line should be pretty good. Like, I think this is work. If Luke Reynolds can give you, I'm not saying Luke Reynolds needs to come in and replace Tyler Warren, because that's awfully hard to do.
But if he gets
104 catches, 1,200 yards. Yeah. But if you have Luke Reynolds as a legitimate, viable tight end receiving threat, which he certainly can be, and those receivers are better, all of a sudden that offense is so much more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's interesting to me about the Penn State thing is that, was it late in the third quarter of the Notre Dame game when their first reception from a receiver happened?
Or was it the fourth quarter? It was in the fourth quarter.
And they were in the game. Like, sometimes I feel like I look at Penn State and I feel like they are one dynamic player away from a position. And it's not always receiver. They've had good receivers in the past. I mean, Jahan Dotson was a freak.
KJ Hamler. Yeah, they had guys who could stretch the field.
They've had dudes before. Sometimes it's a linebacker. Sometimes it's, they've had Micah Parsons. They've had guys. Okay. But I feel like if you would have dropped Jeremiah Smith onto their team last year, they might have won the national title.
Oh, sure. Just go back to the Penn State-Ohio State game, because that was what happened. So Penn State takes the lead with the pick six, and their defense is doing everything it can possibly do to win that game. If Penn State had one person Ohio State was scared of stretching the field,
they could have won.
How much more does that open up for Tyler Warren, for Keelon Allen, for Nick Singleton in that game?
Yeah. It's like so bizarre watching Penn State and Ohio State play last year, and sometimes when Penn State's in big games, not Notre Dame. I thought they could have won that one. They were dominating the entire first half, actually.
Raymond Horton points out they never got a reception, the receivers.
They didn't? I thought they got one in the fourth quarter.
No. On the pitchy woo-woo, a receiver caught one of the pitches, but it wasn't a reception.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Also, too, I guess Tyler Warren had more receptions than the entire receiver core last year combined.
Yes, by 2, 104 to 102.
And they made the semifinals. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So the receiver problem, I think that what you do, and we had this discussion a few weeks ago, it's really hard. There's no Jordan Addison in the portal this year, right? So you can't come down on Penn State for not going out and making a slam dunk, no doubt about it, freak addition to the receiving core, right?
But there were good receivers. Like, you saw Kevin Concepcion went to Texas A&M. Eric Singleton Jr. went from Georgia Tech to Auburn. There were good receivers out there. So it's not that they weren't available at all. They were there.
Yeah. I guess that's true. I don't know. They did. I don't
know. Noah
Zach
Thomas went from Texas A&M to Georgia.
Zach Branch.
But Zach Branch and Kyron Hudson are the same thing. Like,
are they?
Guys who are at USC who were like 4th and 5th on the pecking order.
I mean, I don't know if Hudson, Zach Branch has made my jaw drop before.
He has, but as a wide receiver or as a kick returner?
As a kick returner.
Okay, that's different.
But when you add somebody who's made my jaw drop to your team, that's pretty good.
All right, Zach Branch, 47 catches for 503 yards. He averaged 10.7 yards a reception. That's not a huge receiving average. Kyron Hudson actually had a higher. Kyron Hudson and Zach Branch's stats were very similar last year. Very similar as receivers.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me if like Zach Branch turned out to be an absolute animal in the Georgia system. We'll see. Maybe it won't happen. I don't know.
We'll find out because the USC situation is interesting with all of these guys because Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane were their two leading receivers. They weren't that much different numbers-wise from Branch and Hudson either. Yeah. And then you had Deuce Robinson, who's also transferred to Florida State, who was a little bit behind them. But, it's...
I just want to hear how not good Zach Branch was when Georgia, who can pick whoever they want to come to their school, took him.
Well, yeah. Because if you unlock that jaw-dropping capability of Zach Branch with all of the other athletes you have, then all of a sudden...
Here's how you know there's a difference, Andy. If you switch Hudson and Branch in this conversation, it's a different conversation.
I don't know how different it is.
I think
as
it's
a receiver,
really different conversation. We'd be talking about if they unlock Zach Branch, Penn State could have the thing that they didn't have. Did anyone say that when we were talking about Hudson?
I don't think it's that different. I think one averaged more yards per reception than the other, and it was Hudson.
Do you think one has a higher ceiling than the other?
Maybe, but if they never reach it, it doesn't really matter. So,
I know. If Penn State brings somebody in who has a ceiling like that, that would be the best receiver they could have conceivably gotten, and they didn't.
We'll see. I mean, maybe Devontae Ross will be the best receiver they could have conceivably. We'll find out.
We'll find out. I just think
somebody in the chat pointed out that they don't have a great history and track record. Like Dante Cephas had a big year in the MAC before he went to Penn State and then didn't do much at Penn State.
Yeah. It might be more of the same, but I think there was an entire Penn State conversation too on how do we feel about James Franklin? What needs to be done next year to build on that? Or do you feel like they got over the hump last year and he can breathe a little bit? Where are they?
I think he can breathe just fine because his contract allows that.
No, I know, think did the way
he knows what the problem is, and we just spent 10 minutes talking about it.
Did he look like somebody who could breathe when they walked off the field after the Ohio State loss?
No, but his situation hadn't changed yet at that point. Now it has.
Yeah. So, but his contract hasn't changed is my point. He was in a really rough position in the middle of last year in terms of just being uncomfortable.
And he knew what the problem was, and it's the same problem, and it's been the same problem. So look, he's known what the problem has been. He needs to fix it. We'll see if he did. But we just talked about what steps they've taken this time to try to fix it. There's your Penn State schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Lots at home early. They get Oregon at home. They have to go to Ohio State. They have to go to Iowa. That's going to be tough. But look, if they're 10-2 with losses to Oregon and Ohio State, they'll make the playoff and they'll go in there exactly the same as they did this year. And you just better hope that they have a good draw. Which
10-2 with losses to Oregon, Ohio State I feel like the Penn State football seasons are just Groundhog's Day.
They are. So you got to win one of these. Win one of those. It's a different story. If you're 11-1, you're back in the Big Ten championship game. You've beaten one of those elite teams. So it feels different.
I wonder if
I still think at Iowa is a tough game. I'm not counting that as a gimme.
Yeah, and the fact that they're back-to-back games, there's an open week in between the Iowa and Ohio State game, but back-to-back games is pretty tough. And then Indiana, I don't know what they're going to be, but that might be their toughest 3 games.
Right, and that they're coming to State College, so we'll find out about that. I believe there's a meeting going on right now in State College about naming rights. They're talking about naming the field, not the stadium. So we'll see what they decide on that one. Nate Bauer from Blue White Illustrated had the news on that this weekend, and West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium is the idea they're kicking around. So,
what's that business? It's just I know it's a Penn State alum, but what's the business?
I believe it's a home renovation business, but I'm not sure.
Maybe they can come tell me what the leak in my roof is.
So we'll find out what they do. But I think James Franklin is in a different situation now because of what happened at the end of the year, because they made it to the semifinals, because they were so close to playing for the national title. But he needs to fix the same problem that he needed to fix last year. He knows it. It's up to him to do it.
I just went to the West Shore Home website. That stuff works, man. When you do that sort of thing. Yeah, so Penn State fans are kind of iffy about this, Andy.
They're going to be iffy until they see their receivers streaking down the field and catching passes and them being in a game with Ohio State.
No, but they're iffy.
It isn't just dominated by their defense.
What I meant.
What now?
I said they're iffy about renaming the field, though, too, right?
There's some people who would like it to be named after Joe Paterno. But I believe one pays $50 million and one pays $0.
Yeah.
So the one that's $50 million over 15 years, I think, is the other one.
Yeah, I would take the money.
Yeah. So we'll see. I would fix the receivers. If I want to make Penn State fans happy, I would have productive wide receivers. I think that's what I would do.
And a home remodeling renovation technological company helping you float the bill on that.
Yeah. We're remodeling our offense.
Why don't you remodel your receiver room?
Now with capable wide receivers. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way you got to do it. All right. I'm going to tell you about State and Liberty. I've got the State and Liberty navy blue crew sweater on right now. It is one of my favorites. State and Liberty goes from casual. I got the black waffle knit hoodie that I'm always wearing on the show, all the way up to suits. The suit I wore to the national championship game with State and Liberty. Comfortable, athletic, made to fit you, not made to fit some dude with a pot belly, but made to fit you who are working your ass off in the gym to make sure you look good, and they make sure at State and Liberty that you look even better. So use the code AndyAri for 10% off for new customers. This stuff does not go on sale very often, so this is a very, very good deal. StateandLiberty.com. Use the code AndyAri, ANDYARI, or click the link in the show description and go get yourself some State and Liberty. 10% off for new customers. All right, let's talk about Miami, because a couple different things going on with Miami. One, you have Carson Beck, who's the new quarterback, but also Carson Beck coming off an elbow surgery. We saw him get hurt in the SEC championship game playing for Georgia. He's limited, but it sounds like he may be able to throw in the back half of spring practice. So it'd be nice to see him thrown again. The other piece of this, Miami's overhauled its defense, which really was what killed it last year, because Miami's offense was incredible with Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo, but defensively, it's not like they have bad players. They have some individually very good players on this defense, but can they put it all together? Is it LSU switching to Blake Baker last year? Perhaps their new coach, Corey Heatherman, coming from Minnesota, is going to do the same thing, where you have automatic improvement, instant improvement. All of a sudden, if the offense is pretty good, you've got another playoff contender.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a very pivotal year for Miami, too. Tough schedule, again. But like when you come into the season looking at where they are and where they were last year, I think that Miami fans probably finished the year disappointed, because the potential, offensively at least, was for a deep playoff run, and their defense just was not good, period. Like, it just wasn't good. So I think that you kind of have the same question about Miami that you did about USC coming into this past year, of like, can you just make it okay? Can you just make it serviceable enough to get stops? Because Miami's offense, I'm going to put my flag in the ground right now. They are not scoring at will the way they did last year. They're just not going to. They lost way too much, and I think that Carson Beck, although a nice, salvage of what could have been a disaster of a quarterback room, considering what happened, late in the portal and all that stuff, finding him, I think, was a good thing. But I think that this notion that it's going to be as good or better than last year is insane. So, like, they need, like, the defense is everything this offseason. They need to get stops somehow. Like, and they've got dudes like Ruben Bain. Like, I mean, he could be an All-American next year. Like, it's not like they don't have personnel. They overhauled their secondary in the portal. Like, they brought guys in. Like, I feel like Miami's defense will and should be much better. Does that mean it's going to be great? But no, I think, but if it plays the way that USC played this past year and is really improved, I think that they have a chance to get to 9 wins again.
I think so too. I think a good defense for Miami. Now it sucks with that schedule that you start off with Notre Dame, you get Florida shortly after that, but at least both those games are at home. If you can split those two, you have a really good chance of ripping through your ACC schedule. You know, they do have Louisville and SMU that they've got to play, but they get Louisville at home, and then they got to go to SMU. Those are the scariest games. We'll see about Florida State. Now, maybe Florida State is better this year. Miami's got to go up there. But Miami should be as good or better than Florida State. So with Carson Beck, we talk about everything Cam Ward did, but the other thing that Miami had last year was some excellent old receivers. We had Xavier Restrepo on the show at the Senior Bowl. That guy was incredible. Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George combined for 122 catches for almost 1,900 yards. Sorry. It's like 1880 something. Like, that's obscene.
I've been doing the mock draft thing lately, not making them, but reading them.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of Xavier Restrepo to the Chiefs. If you want to have,
that's not even fair.
Happen next year.
It's not even fair.
She Rice back Xavier Worthy and Restrepo. That would be that'd be something. Like, can you imagine like Restrepo and his ability to run routes and catch everything with Mahomes?
Oh, that's why I said not fair, because like Worthy is a speedster, like traits guy. Restrepo is just a straight up incredible receiver, perfect route runner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's going, and he's not going to, like, in the NFL, probably isn't going to wow you with speed where he's going to just run away from everybody, but he's fast enough and he's a perfect route runner.
Knows how to get open. And
yes.
I feel like that, like, it's like you can test his 40 or whatever. And I know that didn't he say at the Senior Bowl that he's working on his time, trying to get his fast time and stuff. But like, I do feel like there's a huge difference too between like 40 time and game speed, and like his natural feel for the pockets in the secondary kind of reminds me a lot of like what Travis Kelce does, right? Travis Kelce just finds ways to get open, even in broken down plays. And I think Restrepo would be the perfect complement to Patrick Mahomes' playing style. This is an NFL podcast, but oh my God. I think Restrepo was one of the more underappreciated players in the entire sport last year.
Yeah, and I think that's the big question for Miami. Not like Carson Beck, we know is fine. Who is that person? Is it one of the younger guys? Is it somebody who was waiting behind Jacoby George and Xavier Restrepo? Is it a freshman coming in this year? Like, who are the guys that become Carson Beck's primary targets? And look, Carson Beck, we've seen what he looks like with elite targets, and we've seen what he looks like with okay targets. Because when he was throwing to Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, people were talking about him as the first quarterback off the board in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
When he was throwing to the group of receivers he had last year at Georgia, it was a very different story.
I mean, they have JoJo Trader on the team. Like, he's a former 5-star prospect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like they don't have guys. But I think that guys like Trader have to make a huge step forward this year, because I will say it into this camera, and I've said it a million times, and I'll say it 1,000,001. Carson Beck is a trailer, not a truck. He is. And I don't even know if you agree with that, but he is.
I think the numbers have shown that. I think the statistics have borne that out, and he's very reliant on what you put around him.
So,
which if you put good players around him, he's a very effective quarterback. We've seen that.
Yep. So CJ Daniels, Chance Robinson, JoJo Trader, and Icar, they've got options. I feel like those options need to show up in a big way, because you can't just replace George and Restrepo for how good Miami was. I thought was kind of bizarre that they weren't talked about more nationally. I mean, maybe it was just because there was so much energy about the receivers, like sucked up by Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, that it was just hard.
Also, because a lot of the credit was just going to Cam Ward because he was doing things that made your jaw drop.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Ward was excited. I mean, but who was always there open, waiting to finish those plays that made your jaw drop? You know?
Yeah.
So, and who was making the key receptions in games that they had to call back
and Cam Ward did not have that at Washington State. So having that also helped Cam Ward do what he did. Now, Cam Ward's going to be rewarded by being either the first or second quarterback off the board in the draft this year.
Now. It seems like we're at the point now where it's just unequivocally he's going to be the first one, right?
It feels like it.
There seems to be a gap forming between Shedeur and Ward.
Yeah,
right now.
And Ward seems to be the consensus number one. So
welcome to Cleveland.
We'll see. That always switches up as we get closer to the draft because people start lying and people start. Everybody's got to keep the machinery moving.
Cleveland Brown.
Exactly.
Enjoy that, pal. Let me know how it works out.
Yeah, it's funny because Ari, you grew up in Arizona, but followed the Cleveland Browns your entire life.
Yes.
Wound up working in Ohio by coincidence, but you were a Browns guy.
I was a Browns guy. I sucked the life out. I mean, like, here's the thing. The thing that sucks is like growing up a Browns guy ruins your I think the reason why I'm a gambling addict is because I didn't have a team to root for. Like, their seasons have been over by week 4 of my entire life. Like, outside of maybe 3 seasons, they've been terrible. So, and I don't know what happened with that organization, but somebody sold their soul to the devil to curse them or something. I don't know what happened, but it's the most dysfunctional franchise in all of sports. And can't wait to see what Cam Ward does there, but it's going to be a pretty rough.
Maybe somebody will trade up and rescue him. Maybe somebody will trade.
I mean, the Browns are the king of the trade down, but
the Titans have the number 1 pick, and I don't know. We'll see.
Don't the Titans also need a quarterback? Who's their quarterback?
They do.
It's not Will Levis anymore, is it?
Cam Ward would be a good one for them. I could see that.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of mocks just Titans taking Abdul Carter number 1, so I don't know. But I don't even know who. Like, I don't know if the Titans
would take Cam Ward. I would take Cam Ward and cut bait on Will Levis. That would be a pretty easy decision for me.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I don't even think you can say with a straight face that Will Levis can be your quarterback again next year, even if they don't draft a quarterback.
The only way I wouldn't is if the Browns or the Giants, who also need a quarterback, got really desperate and wanted to give me a number 1 next year. Then I'd happily let them take Abdul Carter, and then go get a quarterback next year.
Yeah, I just feel like if I would be a really good GM in the NFL. You want to know why?
What's that?
I would draft a quarterback every single year until we knew we got a franchise guy.
So you're a college coach. You just do it like a college coach does.
Or take a quarterback with all 7 picks until you find really good. Because you can wallow without a quarterback for 30 years and suck for 30 years, or you can go try to find your guy. Your draft with every NFL team that has turned it around? Oh, it's like Washington has sucked for 30 years and they go get Jaden Daniels and now they're almost in the NFC. Oh, I wonder what happened. Like, and if Jaden would have sucked, then go get somebody else next year until you find Jaden Daniels.
So I don't think you have to use your first on a quarterback every year if there's not somebody available, but I actually think that's not a bad idea.
I do.
No, I'm saying use a first when you feel like it's an obvious guy, but then keep every year. Just take somebody in the 3rd, 4th, 5th.
How many of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL are 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks? It's got
some of the really good ones are.
Right? I know
Prescott's a 4th. Brock Purdy's a 7th.
Yeah. So these are the exceptions to the rule.
I don't know how big of exceptions they are.
If you don't have a quarterback, you can feel comfortable trying to get one in the 4th round. Like Brock Purdy was.
I'm not saying you're going to get a quarterback to be your starter in the 4th round. I'm using your philosophy of draft one every year. If you use your 1st round pick on a quarterback every year, you're stupid and you're going to get fired. But if you use a pick on a quarterback every year,
Or you could do what the Cleveland Browns have done, which is draft kind of okay the last 10 years. And get guys like Nick Chubb.
And pick exactly the wrong quarterback.
And pick the wrong quarterback year over year and then ruin their primes and make them, bash their heads in for 15 years and not have anything to show for it because you never had somebody who could throw a football. So, it's up to you how you want to handle it. But, to me, I would there's this notion that the Browns might not, or was a notion that the Browns might not take a quarterback because they owe Deshaun Watson all this money. And it's okay, well, then go another year. They have 40 starting quarterbacks since 2001. Go ahead, keep going.
I would take one because your only chance of having a good quarterback now, while you owe Deshaun Watson all that money, is to have a quarterback on a rookie contract.
Especially when you owe the person a lot of money and he sucks. Deshaun sucks. He's not even even if he's healthy, he's not got a good quarterback. Right. So anymore, he used to be. I don't know. A lot happened in the last few years with him, and the result of it was he doesn't know how to throw a ball anymore. So that.
But I do like your philosophy because that is what college coaches do. College coaches take a quarterback every year, regardless of.
And it's also even the exceptions do though. It's okay, well they took Brock Purdy with the last overall pick, Mr. Relevant. Everybody forgets that they took a quarterback in the top 5 the same year. That wasn't the plan. They backdoored into it. And it worked out for them, but that's not the way that they drew it up. And who was the
No, it's not, but that's why you take that's why you occasionally take one in the lower rounds.
Yeah.
Because it might work out for you.
But when they drafted Dak Prescott, wasn't Tony Romo still 2-3 years left on his contract?
Oh yeah, that was purely speculative when they drafted Dak Prescott.
Either took a player in the first round or had a quarterback they were comfortable starting for a few more years before they had to rely on it. The Browns need one now. They need one yesterday.
Well, I know, but they haven't been using your philosophy. Yeah. Once a team has been using your philosophy for a while, then they'll have the quarterback they want starting that they're comfortable with, and they can speculate every year in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
Grab-ass portion of the show. But my point is that if you draft a quarterback in the first round, by the following year, you'll either know he's not your guy or he is. And if he's not your guy, then do it again until you find the person who becomes Jaden Daniels. Mm-hmm. And then you can build your entire team around them. I just think it's weird in the NFL when teams try to reverse build their teams, which is half the league. Of we don't have a quarterback, so we're just going to take Abdul Carter and we'll figure it out the quarterback down the line. It's okay, well then suck for another year and then figure it out. It doesn't. I don't care how good Abdul Carter is. Myles Garrett is the testament to he is the best non-quarterback in the league and has been for 5 years, and the Browns have sucked the entire time. Why?
It's true. Gotta have a quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, Ben in the chat has a question. Have y'all talked about DJ Lagway? Is he on quote-unquote light duty at spring practice? What knowledge you got for him? We did talk about this on Friday, but we can talk about it some more. DJ Lagway is on light duty at spring practice. Billy Napier mentioned some injuries, and you've seen him just kind of working on air. And now, I don't think this is going to affect DJ Lagway in the fall. I think he's going to be just fine, but
let's just say it though, if he's not, is Billy Napier just a dead man walking at that point?
It's a big problem because I don't know that Harrison Bailey's your guy to lead you to 8, 9, 10 wins against this schedule. So yeah, you need DJ Lagway to be healthy. And here's the thing with Lagway. So as a freshman, he toughed out some games because he got hurt in the Miami game. He hurt his shoulder in the Miami game and played through a nagging injury after that. He has the hamstring injury in the Georgia game that knocks him out of the game, keeps him out of the Texas game, comes back playing on one leg against LSU. Played really well considering. So, Ben, my question is, could he go if needed? Well, he's not needed till September, so I think they're probably okay. He can go. He'll be able to go when that happens.
And also, too, the thing about being a freak of an athlete and having 6 months to go on any injury is that he's going to be okay, probably. Aren't there players who were come back from torn ACLs in 6 months now?
Adrian Peterson did it in 9. That's the fastest I've ever heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I think it's frustrating for them, I think, because they wanted to tap into all this optimism the way last year finished. They want videos of DJ Lagway chucking balls down the field, going viral, but that's not going to happen. You're not going to see that this spring. So you have to live with that. And the more important thing is DJ Lagway being healthy for the regular season. So now, does this hurt as he tries to figure out who his new top receivers are? Because Elijah Badger and Shamir DK are gone. Yeah, absolutely. So they'll have to get that part straightened out as he gets to where he can throw some more and gets into the summer workouts and develop some chemistry. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be. I think it's going to be frustrating for Florida not having a chance to really ride that excitement. But as long as he's healthy and starting when the season starts, I don't think, because that's all that really matters at this point. Like you said, if he's not healthy during the season, there's a bigger problem. And there are many more discussions to have. But I do feel like a healthy DJ Lagway makes you pretty optimistic about Florida going into the season.
As for us.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's a tough schedule. Ari, for tomorrow's show, can we talk a little bit about the team that can just mess up everybody's expectations?
Yes.
I texted you this morning, and
you were right. Because
should we tell everybody who the team is?
Well, I noticed a team over the weekend when we were doing the hardest schedules research last week, and then the story ran this weekend, who just crept up on everyone's schedule.
Yep. and everyone's schedule where a coach is either on a hot seat situation or in a you got to win or everybody's going to turn on you year. And if this team is good, they can mess up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And they were pretty good last year. So tomorrow, we're going to explain how the Texas A&M Aggies could just completely wreck shop and get everybody fired. We'll talk to you tomorrow.